It sounds absurd. Countries drowning in debt, billions owed to lenders, economies teetering on the brink, and yet they borrow more. Every year, every crisis, every warning. Why? How can it make sense to borrow when you already owe too much? If this were a business, it would be bankruptcy. But nations aren't businesses, and the rules are not what they seem. Look at the numbers. Global debt has surged past $300 trillion. That's more than three times the size of the entire world economy. Advanced economies, emerging markets, even fragile states. They all borrow. Interest rates fluctuate, inflation rises, markets panic, and the cycle repeats. Right now, understanding why countries do this isn't just academic, it affects every bank account, every mortgage, every retirement fund. It's about the invisible forces shaping your money. Step 1. The debt trap. How it starts. It begins innocently. Governments borrow to finance projects: roads, schools, hospitals, energy. Ideally, these investments boost growth, and the debt pays for itself. But growth rarely follows a straight line. Recessions hit, revenues fall, spending pressures rise. The solution? Borrow more. What looks like reckless borrowing is often just survival. Consider Japan. In the 1990s, the bubble burst. Growth stagnated, yet the government kept borrowing. Today, Japan's debt is over 250% of GDP, by far the highest in the developed world, and still, banks lend. Why? Because Japanese bonds are considered ultra safe. The government never defaulted, so lenders trust it. Trust, not math, drives much of the system. Step 2. The mechanics. Who's lending and why? Governments don't just walk into a bank and ask for money, they issue bonds. Investors, domestic and foreign, buy them. Bonds are promises to repay with interest. Central banks often step in, buying these bonds to keep interest rates low. It's a subtle feedback loop. The more debt a government issues, the more tools it gives its central bank to manage the economy. And here's the irony. High debt can make debt safer. How? Because it forces governments to maintain credibility. Investors fear default. If a country manages to service its debt consistently, it becomes a global safe haven for lenders, even at astronomical debt levels. Trust, not math, drives much of the system. Step 3. The hidden math. Why high debt doesn't always collapse. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The total amount of debt doesn't always matter. What matters is the cost of servicing it. If interest rates are low, governments can carry massive debt with minimal disruption. This is why U.S. debt, now over $33 trillion, hasn't collapsed the economy. Rates are historically low, borrowing is cheap, governments can roll over debt indefinitely. But there's a catch. Inflation, political instability, or rising rates can quickly turn this math against a nation. Small shifts in market confidence can make debt unsustainable overnight. The system works on trust, timing, and perception more than raw numbers. Step 4. The popular misconception versus reality. Many people assume borrowing is always reckless. Headlines warn of sovereign debt crises, as if default is inevitable. Yet history shows a different story. Countries like the UK, US, and Germany have carried enormous debts through wars, recessions, and crises, and survived. Meanwhile, smaller, less trusted economies collapse under far less debt. It's not just the amount borrowed, it's how the debt is perceived, managed, and integrated into global finance. Borrowing can be a tool for stability, not just a burden. The twist? The very act of borrowing can signal strength. Investors often see a country raising debt to fund growth as proactive, not desperate. Step 5. the broader implications. This borrowing cycle has consequences. It shapes global power. Countries that control capital flows, like the US, Japan, and Germany, can borrow almost freely. Others, like Pakistan or Argentina, face high sky interest rates and volatile markets. Debt becomes a measure of influence, access, and trust, not just economic health. On a societal level, it determines spending priorities. Who gets funded? Infrastructure, defense, social programs. How much goes to interest payments? And who ultimately pays? Often, citizens bear the brunt through taxes, inflation, or austerity. The system works, but it's not neutral. Irony and subtle humor. Here's a darkly ironic twist. Countries can outsmart themselves by borrowing to pay interest on previous debt. Endless loops. It sounds absurd, yet it happens. Debt becomes a self-fulfilling cycle financed by the confidence of lenders who never expect the borrower to fail, because the system is designed that way. Zooming out. Systemic risks. The global economy runs on this invisible trust network. Small shocks, bank collapses, geopolitical tensions, sudden inflation spikes can ripple globally. When trust falters, even strong economies face sudden stress. Debt isn't just numbers on a balance sheet, it's the scaffolding of international stability, and it's fragile, even when it seems secure. Closing thought. Lingering question. So why do countries keep borrowing when debt is already high sky? Because in the world of finance, debt is power. Borrowing is not just survival, it's leverage, signaling, and control. But the same tools that sustain an economy can also hide the cracks. And those cracks often appear when no one expects them. What if the next global shock doesn't come from a market crash or inflation, but from the very trust that allows countries to keep borrowing